Just tons and tons of stuff to talk about, and I am pleased to be joined in the studio by Chris Swift. He's with Swift Trading right here in Nashville. And it's so good to have you close by.
Well,
Thanks for coming in. And we're going to be joined by Rich Nelson of Allendale, like we normally speak every morning. We're a little bit early with Rich today, but we have Rich on the line as well. So we're just going to kind of have a little powwow here and talk about the markets. So first off, Chris, I want to go to you. Okay. And on these quotes provided by Bar Chart that we just looked at, a bit of a rebound. Mm-hmm. We're heading into a weekend. There's going to be a lot of questions about what the weather is going to be doing now over the weekend, and there's already debate. Overnight, was that an indication that early rainfall amounts have been disappointing in Iowa?
Well, I think after the excessive amount of market movement that we saw from the government action on Wednesday from the FOMC meeting, I have a feeling that corn still is, they didn't break the drought. They didn't stop any of the Chinese buying, and they're not going to be able to help South America out of their drought. So I think, yes, I think everybody turns their attention away from, okay, we may have a little bit of stronger dollar we have to mess with for the next couple of months. But other than that, it's not going to impact the growing of this year's corn crop.
Rich, I want to bring you on board here. And last night I was watching on social media, a lot of people were saying in the western half of the Corn Belt, let's say, they say the market has no idea how dry it really is out here at this point. And they said even if we do get rain this weekend, they said it's going to have to keep coming through July because they really didn't have any subsoil moisture buildup coming into the growing season this year that they normally would have. What do you hear from your clients out there?
And the exact same story. People, especially in that eastern Nebraska region and western Iowa, basically pointing out that some of the forecast changes in the last couple of days on these models, which left them out of seeing much rainfall. In their minds, they already are pricing in some type or expecting some type of yield hit, even though we're still in front of the big pollination times and kernel fill finish weather times as well.
So the comment that really caught my attention last night was someone I believe in Iowa said we're going to have above normal rain, not just normal rainfall, but above normal rainfall through the month of July just to even have any hope of getting a trend line yield this year. Is that true?
As far as that goes, the data actually doesn't show that June weather is really that big of a determinant. So from a stat standpoint, I can't make that claim because we have seen years where we go into pollination dry, we see a rain or two, and magically when the harvest comes, we've got an extra 10 bushels than we expected. So statistically, that's not true, but we can certainly point out from a psychological basis, the market does need to price in this risk until we see those type of rains here.
Well, and on that drought monitor map that we were just showing there, and Tim Ross has been good enough to share these maps with us here, you can tell that a good share of Iowa has gotten into that severe drought category. And maybe he can talk more about that. We're going to invite him into this conversation. We'll take a break right here, and we'll see what the latest information is that Tim Ross has related to the weather this coming weekend. And we'll have that after a short break. We are back with you, and we are talking right now with a couple of gentlemen. We have Chris Swift in the studio. He's with Swift Trading in Nashville. And on video feed, we have Rich Nelson, and he is with Allendale. He's our regular contributor each morning at this time, and good to have both of you with us here. This is fun to talk about what the markets may do. We are just right now on the cusp, of our full-scale weather markets as we get into the growing season. Rich, I wanted to ask you, as I went home last night after work, and the dust was settling after that wild market day, I was surprised to drive by a field that was already starting to tassel out. And I had heard a report just literally 2 days ago that folks out in the far western Corn Belt, for example, in eastern Colorado, were still finishing planting. So, I mean, we're running the gamut from tasseling to just not even coming out of the ground yet. And it made me wonder just how much of a wide window is this for the weather influence here on the markets right now?
And that's going to be a really interesting point because, as we know, pollination is the determinant of yields. We've got over 60% of your final year's corn yield is really determined by a 3-week window of time. And this year, it's actually be stretched out to about 4.5 weeks. So a very good point in pointing out that we actually have a wider window of time than usual in getting this crop through this very delicate process. So the next few weeks, very big issue regarding weather and a massive concern about this moisture issue here.
So just north of where you are, they actually had pretty decent rainfall, I believe, in Wisconsin last night. How big would the corn be up there? It's not very big, right?
No, at this point in time, it's not. We're still obviously clearly in the vegetative growth stages, and we probably will be until for Wisconsin specifically. We'll probably have probably about 3, if not 4 weeks before we see the majority of concern about this weather issue. So rains were good for them; they're happy with those crops up there, but still we're a bit away from the Super Bowl, so to speak, of yield determination.
Well, I want to throw Tim Ross a little curve here too. Tim, if I can grab you back here for a second. You were showing the weather maps and the forecast maps, but all the talk about the weather implications on the market here, they hover around how much rain they'll get around Iowa and Illinois. Do you think the weather models have changed any from yesterday? Have they lightened up a little bit on precip prospects? What do you think?
Well, I think the prospects are the same for the precip. It's just that we're changing things around a little bit as we go. I think last night there was a lot well, we didn't get as many showers in Nebraska, Iowa as we'd hope. You can see today they were farther to the east, and that's where they'll be the next 24 hours. But by the time you get into Sunday, we're going to introduce another little cool front dropping out of Canada Saturday and Sunday. So you can see on the western side of the Corn Belt, then we add some showers, some pretty nice ones, Prague for eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, a place that kind of got cheated this morning, so that should help out a little bit. You can see we play some more through there through Monday morning when it finally drifts into the eastern part of the Corn Belt. So when you look at the next 3 or 4 days, the east and the western part of the Corn Belt actually should get a good bit of rain, at least enough to make a difference.
Interesting. All right, Chris, I want to ask you a question then.
All right.
Given that map that he just showed, how important is it that we have general coverage this weekend, or the market may say, hey, that wasn't enough?
Well, if we look at it's probably about the top third of the western Corn Belt there that is in the worst shape. So it's definitely going to impact some yields on there. And we already know that Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and everything south of that is lush green. So it's probably a smaller portion of it, but it's going to be crucial because like Rich said, I've had clients that tell me that we're only knee-high in corn and we should already be shoulder-high, dark green, and we just don't have quite as good a crop as what we thought we were going to have with such early planting and good moisture initially.
So we're going to take another break here, and then I want to talk with both of our gentlemen about the potential for opportunities. There could be silver lining in this, one way or the other, or maybe some strategies on how to capitalize on the market moves and the volatility that we're seeing. So put on your thinking cap. We'll talk about that when we come back after a quick little break. All right, we're talking with Chris Swift and also Rich Nelson. Chris is with Swift Trading and Rich is with Allendale. Okay, Chris, I want to present this question to you. Given the volatility we have, how in the world does a producer protect himself? How does he improve his bottom line in any strategy you can think of right now?
It's a very difficult question to answer on the spot. And the first thing I would say is probably contact your broker or your analyst and get with them and find out what the option volatility premiums are, what's available to you. Then go to your elevator, see what the cash market is, see what your basis is on there, and then do some comparisons. Where can I sell the crop the highest price at? And then what can I do to minimize my risk of these enormous price fluctuations that we're having?
And one thing I pointed out on my radio show a little bit ago on Commodity Wrap, that's on, you need to check that out, Sirius XM, channel 147, and put a shameless plug in there. Anyway, it comes on at 7:30 Central Time every morning. And we were talking about the fact that some people they're hesitant to do anything in the way of forward marketing, and they say, I'll just hold my grain in the bin until I pull the trigger. But that in itself is speculating.
To an extent it is. anytime you're trying to market and improve your bottom line on there, I think it's well worth investigating the different tools that are available to you to be able to do that. And yes, there is always risk. If you just hold it in the bin, the price just keeps going down. Unfortunately, that's the price you're going to take at the elevator. Right now, where we have extreme volatility, basis can get very wide, and we're seeing some basis changes in the Midwest and in the North Midwest where some of this issue is happening, and especially with our feed clients that are having to purchase this corn, the basis is really getting out of line quick because we're running short of feedstuffs of every single kind.
All right, Rich, have you had a lot of folks doing forward pricing for not only this new crop, but also 22 and 2023? I've heard some analysts saying they're booking 2 years out already.
You know, I think that discussion is really relevant. The question is exactly how many producers are taking advantage of that. So at this point in time, I think a lot of them are still focused on trying to have a clear discussion about this new crop discussion. And keep in mind, you know, yesterday's price move, as far as that big down move, we already entered into the price range for corn specifically that implies trend yield. So for corn at these lower prices, there's actually not much really downside left. We can have some concerns about soybeans in this case. So at this point in time, we'd probably argue a rebound on the soybeans side, getting that November contract, in this case, back over 1350. I think we probably will have certain opportunities at later points in time during the summer to do a little better job of marketing here.
How secure do you think that recent high, I believe it was on May 12th, if I recall right, on the soybeans, how secure do you think that is, that would be the high of the year? Or do you think there's a high possibility they could still take that thing out yet?
You know, for myself, I'd probably say there's about a 60% chance that it would be the high. I'm not convinced of things here this year simply because our numbers are so tight that any small concern about the weather in July or August certainly can have an exponential change in price. So I'm not exactly sure, but I certainly feel that a higher confidence rate in saying that might be the high for soybeans rather than for corn here.
Chris, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that there is a chance that high could be taken out?
Oh, always there is. We've seen higher bean prices than this. We know that the bean oil market was the one that helped the beans along more than anything. We dropped $100 a ton in the bean meal while we rose probably close to $3 in the bean oil. So that movement, a lot of the beans was due to the bean oil. So really you haven't played as much of the weather factor into the beans as what you have just because it was lifted up due to the crush needing the bean oil.
And that's an interesting point because that's something totally beyond the producer's control and even the grain merchandisers, because now you're talking about the biofuel mandates and all that.
It's raw demand for the product.
And that would impact not just soybean oil, but it could have an impact on the corn as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we saw that the ethanol producers had increased their production 1 or 2 weeks ago, and that increase totaled to about 36 million bushels more than what they had been doing. So I'm kind of interesting to see why the Biden administration is now going to offer credits to the refineries to slow what was being so good to the corn market.
All right, Rich, I want to go back to you here for a second. And on the opening call this morning, I know we had a expanded limit down move in the lean hogs yesterday. What's the call on cattle and hogs this morning?
It's like an earlier discussion for them actually is a little higher here for the cattle end of things. They're actually called about 50 to 75 cents higher. So hopefully a good rebound on this end. And for the hog side, which has had 2 consecutive days of limit down trade, right now discussion is about 30 to 50 cents higher. So they're going to try to start out a little higher. Let's see if it holds here for the hogs.
Okay, that'd be about what would that be, a 5% rebound or something? I don't know. It's the numbers are just too big this week. Well, thank you, gentlemen, both of you, for joining us today on a special coverage of what was a historic event yesterday. And we'll see how the markets open up. They open up at the bottom of the hour. We'll have full coverage right here.